Just let me know when.
You're good.
Alright, welcome to the board meeting, everyone, Delaware Academy Central School District. Please rise and pledge allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alright, Carrie, you will kick us off with budget review.
I don't have a whole lot to add, except that we do finally have a budget. The last couple of weeks, we've had a little bit of a break, but we actually did find some good news, multiple things, actually. One of the items was the state did pass the budget. The district here saw about a $180,000 increase, mainly in foundation aid. There are a couple increases in categorical aids, which I don't buy into as much, like we had talked about that before. Sometimes they overestimate those aids, and so we kept our numbers conservative and kept them where we were before. Did increase our foundation aid, which did basically help us take a few additions. We added a few things, but we also were able to take and not use as much fund balance going into 21-22. The next news we heard, excuse me, the last time we discussed it was the rescue plan, or second wave of stimulus funding, however way you want to look at it. We're slated to get about $1.84 million. We're still, even as of this morning, talking with Quest R3, which is state aid planning. There's still a lot of what ifs out there, the biggest one being time. I heard this morning that you have to allocate 1/8 of 50% of the total allocation in 21-22. Now it has to be, I think we talked about this before, labeled as federal funding instead of general funding. So that'll be just kind of like a movement of pieces within the budget if we have to do that. Our goal really is not to touch that money until 22-23. If we are instructed to allocate, like I said, 1/8 of 50% of the total allocation, which amounts to about $115,000, we'll just basically reallocate expenses in the current budget. Not that we're gonna add anything new or take anything out. We're just gonna shuffle that to a federal funding and reclassify it. And then in the next year, you'll see that reclassification much larger. So when we get to that point, I talked with Quest R3, asked for their opinion on it. My opinion personally was, don't touch anything, get your budget set in your general fund. If you have to reclassify, it's much easier than setting your budget too low and then all of a sudden needing that cash later. So we're gonna keep with the same kind of money, our budget that we put together last week, and then we'll present that. We talked about this at the last meeting. What are we gonna do with that money, $1.84 million? We don't know what kind of cuts we're looking at down the road from the state, so we're estimating what we're seeing. We saw an average during the GEA, if you remember a couple weeks ago. During gap elimination, on average, was about $800,000 taken out of the budget. We're estimating, let's say they cut $875 per year from the state budget, very well could happen. We've seen even larger cuts. And then with average budget growth, about $300,000 a year, using some of our reserve funding and rescue aid funding, splitting it out 3 ways over 3 years, we'll be able to basically weather that storm. So, and this is just kind of a snapshot. If all of those pieces fell into line, they were huge cuts at the state level. We ended up with budget growth of $300,000. Now this is also taking into fact that we're not saving any money. This district does, like I talked about before, 97% of the budget is spent. That other 3 to 4% is usually reallocated to savings. That's taking a very dry budget year to year. I would estimate that we will have growth. And what I mean by growth is some kind of savings throughout the year that will be added to the reserves, or we just won't use as many reserves as we are slated to. If that was all to happen, we would be back into about a $5 million total reserve, reserve package. And again, hopefully that storm is over with, the pandemic is over, all the fiscal instability of the state is over with. We can keep moving on and then keep building the reserves back up again. The largest piece of that coming out would be, again, is the capital project. So we have already earmarked that money. for a portion of the state of the local share. So that will come out in 22-23.
Carrie, for that 1.8 million, are there certain designations within that are specified?
I've gone
Things,
through,
I've heard a term called learning loss.
so I just started going through the legislation. I have not, and that was across our threes thing too, this morning was don't do anything until there's a lot more clarification on what it's supposed to be used for. I didn't hear that one, but that, they could very well.
I can only guess, I would assume I know what that means, but
Yeah, there was a lot of early conversation as to when this is reallocated to districts through the state, that you should earmark a certain percentage of it to address historically what they've termed learning loss. In discussing that in the district and actually publicly, I've tried to turn that on its head to argue that our students have lost nothing, that they have actually demonstrated significant progress during this. But what it's really referring to is any gaps in instruction or gaps in curriculum that just couldn't be met or reached because of the pandemic and because of, the various learning models that districts across the state have engaged in. And that's gonna vary widely from district to district. And I would argue that at Delaware Academy, that the effects of that will not resonate nearly as deeply as it will in other districts that haven't been able to get kids in as much as we have this year. Regardless, they have not provided any specificity around that designation yet. So if that is the case, then we will look at, really how we will use those funds to support a more robust RTI process, AIS for all students, interventions in tier 1 instruction for all students, and what that looks like. I would anticipate a portion of through professional development, and then through programs within the classroom to buttress that. But until we have more definitive information, we can't put a specific line in the budget to address that term.
They talk about right here, actually, and I did catch this morning, was that right now they're saying prior to July 1st, 2021, the district has to put together a plan of how they basically gonna spend money.
Yeah.
Prioritizing certain items. They do talk a little bit about, they're not using the word gaps or learning loss, but interrupted instruction.
Yes. You'll hear a bunch of different terms coming up.
Right, exactly. Technology, addressing the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on students, getting back to in-person instruction, maximizing in-person instruction time.
Social emotional learning is in there.
This is about all that I've received so far on 1.8 million. And like I said, within the next 3 months, we have to put together a plan to spend that, however we're going to do that. So again, it'll be used in the general fund. This is just a quick snapshot of where we are currently at the end of this year with reserves where we could be. Again, it's not devastating, it's basically just trying to show those safety nets that we put together if it does come to it. Now, back to what you're saying, it could be that we can only use it for a certain pocket of expenses, and then we don't have huge state cuts. We don't end up spending the 1.84 million only because we can't spend it. There are certain things that the state does do within budgets, that we can't touch it because it's not really useful to the district. So if they do turn around and say that this money is for reopening schools and we're already open for a full year, I don't know. We'll see what happens. So that is what we're allocated. Pretty good chunk of change, to be honest, and we'll see how we have to spend it. The budget, as far as this year, next year, 2021, as I've said before, this is for full person instruction. This is not a hybrid model. This is based upon everyone being back, all staff being back. We just saw the basic contractual increases for, salaries, not really health insurance, only a retiree health insurance. ERS, TRS have gone up a little bit. ERS is around 9.8, TRS is up around 11.8, I think it is. In climbing, that may climb a little bit more. I think it's projected to go to around 13, that's the projection right now for ERS. TRS will probably stay around a 10. They did not approve the early retirement plan that they were throwing around. They were throwing around two of them in the package. There was a 10-year 55 and then a 25-year 55, age of 55. They did not go through, so. And that wouldn't have affected ERS or TRS, it would have only, the districts would have had to buy into those programs. So if the state's offering an incentive program, believe me, they're not gonna pay for it, the individual districts that offer to their employees will have to pay for it. But it's off the table anyway. One of the things after we saw the aid increase last week, we talked about there were certain things kind of hanging on, waiting to see if we could do it. One being summer driver's ed program. We talked about it last meeting. We are looking to do a summer driver's ed program and then fund it completely so it wouldn't be on the taxpayer or the parents or the students. We're looking to add one special education teacher, and I'll let Mrs. Zimmerman speak about that. We're also allocating and earmarking a chunk of change, roughly $50,000 for summer program. And I only say earmarking because we're still kind of looking at what kind of program we could actually facilitate here, at what level and what grade and what grades. And I'll let you speak on behalf of that. And the other thing would be a new van purchase. We try to rotate our vans like we do our buses. The last purchases we had were 2017. We purchased 2 vans. We have one right now that's it'll be 10 years old after this summer, so we're looking to, we're gonna keep that van. Basically, it's got about 140,000 miles on it. It's non-DOT inspected, so it doesn't have to go through the rigorous inspection process that the others do, but we also don't transport students in it. It's mainly used for staff or any kind of running back and forth. We're using it for the kitchen right now, of course, from the middle school cafeteria up to the elementary, but it's non-DOT. This would bring our fleet up to 5. We have currently 4. We average around 5 vans. If that van,
This is the one that was removed last year, right?
what's that?
This is the one that was removed from the budget.
Yeah, that one was total, yep, exactly, so. And if the other van goes, we now have 4 and pretty newer fleet, so. That van's around 20, I think we have a proposition, a resolution to be approved, and run around just a little shy of 30,000. We get 8 on that, about 55% over 5 years. So I'll let you talk about it, special ed if you want, or.
Actually, I'm gonna hold off until Kristen's presentation,
Okay.
because she's gonna hit and provide some greater specificity around our special education programs as a whole, our entire continuum, and then specific to this program for next year.
Terry, a question on driver ed for the summer. When we were told that there were only about 4 students interested in driver ed originally, is that with the students' knowledge and the family's knowledge that we would not be putting it in the regular class?
We have not fully solicited the student body yet. That was just based on how many students have stopped into the counseling office and inquired about it. So I anticipate that it will probably fall more in line with historically having between 15 and 20 kids. And we will be able to accommodate that
With one driver
in the summer.
with one.
I think we did 2. The one summer I was here that we did 2. We did a
Right.
morning and an
Right.
afternoon, and the
That's
students
what I
kind of came in and did the driving and then came in and sat in
In
the class.
classroom instruction.
I think we were able to get quite a few students.
Because I do think that when families realize that there isn't going to be offered in the school year, I know you had mentioned that we were the only school in the area that offered it, but we've always prided ourselves to
Yes.
be doing things beyond the call. And I think some families, especially with the reduction in insurance for these students and the safety factor, I just was mentioning in our little Route 10 how many people have memorials. And of the memorials, they're all involved young men. And
We will make sure that we communicate far and wide the specifics behind this, and that the intent is not to include it during the regular school year. And explore what opportunities we have to provide for whatever students demonstrate an interest. It also depends on when they turn 16, I realize, all of those pieces, but we'll make sure that we are transparent and clear in our communications on the change to this program.
And if there were, because of our families and our economic level, the students who might want to avail to summer driver ed, but are dependent on a job, would there be a chance of giving them priority to certain slots so that it would accommodate keeping the job?
I don't know, I don't know, we haven't looked into it that far yet in terms of developing that, but that's something we can certainly take into consideration.
It didn't sound like,
I
it didn't sound like,
Yeah.
because we're left out, right? Were the kids left out? In the summer?
From what program?
Did you do the summer before?
Yeah, we had a full house. I don't know of any student or parent that was left out. Like I said, we did a full house of it and I thought it worked very well. I don't know about priorities as far as for those. I'm sure they did work with those students. There were plenty of students that did have to work and, but no, I didn't, I mean, like I said, I
Well, I was
felt.
just curious, like, when she said prioritize, but it didn't sound like anybody was left out, where you have to prioritize certain kids.
Not that I'm aware of,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. So the budget, the final budget ends up being about a 2% increase from budget to budget. Last year we were at about almost 2.56, 2.6, with a 1.5% tax levy. Our average tax levy is 1.43. That's taking over a 10-year span. Budget to budget, a little about 2.2%. So we're lower than last year. We've got a lot more answers this year compared to last year. But pretty fair budget, $21,048,618. That takes into account some of the money also from Kellogg. That money is being used for debt service, previous debt service payments, the new van purchase, summer enrichment, and summer's driver's ed. We'll take care of those. That's about $390,000. That's an estimate because you're basing some of it on principal and also on estimated earnings from interest earnings. Some of the reductions, some of the increases, 1200 code, which is actually superintendent's reduction in contractual salaries from the previous year. If you remember, we had budgeted, this was prior to Kelly coming aboard, so we ended up having just a rollover budget from the previous year. There's almost a 14% increase in the financial line, which is 13, which is basically my office and all the software. We're not seeing any of it. It has to do with recoding of software package through BOCES called Forecast 5. We had that coded originally in the 1600 codes, and then we moved that into the 1300 codes. So there's a reduction in one and an increase in another. It's just that's all it was a switch from that and some small contractual increases. We've got a large increase, about 77% through it's called the 1400 codes under staff. That's where you see the public relations specialist that we have through BOCES. That piece is in there. That's where you see such a large increase. We had nothing budgeted for that. We weren't looking at that last year. We have now added 2 days and looking to add a third for next year. The rest of the increases and decreases are pretty minor, 2% here, 0.5% is there. Mainly, a lot of it has to do with contractual. We see a little bit of an increase, decrease actually in the 2800 codes. We had an RN salary that was in that line, Mary Schmidt was in that line, and actually we moved that out. She had retired and it was part of a contract through Bassett, so that staff member is no longer here, it's no longer under that code. So we didn't reduce staffing, it wasn't really our staff anyway, she was being paid through the district, but a Bassett employee. So we're still have the 2 nurses, one in the elementary, one in the high school. Small increase in debt service, that's only associated to the band interest, so this is we have a short-term note right now to help pay for some of the construction project, about $3 million, you have to pay interest on that, and then from there, we will renew that again next year for cash flow. So, we will get 8 on that interest also, about $55,000. Really, the only thing left at this point is approve the budget number. we will have, we're gonna continue as we hear more regarding this rescue stimulus package. We'll update the board on how we're to spend that, how we're supposed to put together a plan, what needs to be included in the plan, go from there. And then the budget vote is the 18th of May. Any questions?
Another question, Mr. Schultz, where it says addition of BOCES PRI specialist. And you explained what the addition was. How many hours does he work for us?
That's 2 full days currently, but this estimate shows for 3 full days for next year.
And the 2 full days would have been what is in this year's amount?
No, there was nothing in this year's budget for it.
No, that was something that we had added this fall that was previously not budgeted for.
So the increase you're seeing is basically all 3 days. It's not 2 days in 1 year and then we're adding another. As far as financial, we are adding one more, but you're seeing the brunt of that all within that one line.
Because that was not paid for at all in last year's budget.
And that's BOCES able.
Yes,
Yes,
the first 30,000 is not eatable.
right, but we have to show that full amount in the proposed budget.
But, well, I guess I'm not aware, I know IT people get paid quite a bit, but $167,650 for 3 days?
No, there's more to it than that.
Okay, that's what I'm.
No.
I know mentally.
Here, I'm glad that you asked that. No, it's just that change amount is the differential, that 72,750. That's the differential because of that position.
Okay,
So this is in the same category. Here were some other things that would have been reflected in that 167.
So you also have, the coordinator who oversees our case BP insurance plan is in that.
Right.
And we have some smaller other pieces in there. Print shop, things like that, just very small. Your safety specialist is in there also. So we contract with BOCES for safety. They come in and do inspections and things like a laundry list of items. They would be in that list also.
Thank you.
No, if that's the case, then I'm gonna go look for
I was
gonna say,
public relations. Yeah, tomorrow.
Are you gonna talk later about the summer enrichment?
So I can touch briefly on that piece right now. Not knowing what will be required of districts coming out of, as we transition into the fall. Just like the question that Seth had asked about, how much funding will be required to go toward recuperating learning gaps and that type of thing. We wanted to have a placeholder in there should we decide to address that. We know that at the high school, we will need to be looking into a credit recovery program. And we want to have the flexibility that if BOCES is not the best option for that, we're looking at ways to do that in-house through APEX. Which is, we want to kind of earmark some dollars for that. Right now at our elementary level, the data that I shared previously has demonstrated that the learning loss has been very minimal because they have just done a phenomenal job and they've maintained the pace of curriculum throughout this pandemic. So we will be looking at opportunities for summer. We just don't know yet what grade levels or where the greatest need will be for that. And so that's what that's earmarked for.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Carrie? Thank you.
Thank you.
While we give Kristen Shearer a minute to get loaded and get set up here, I had asked Kristen to come tonight. We have given kind of the state of the district presentations on our data and where we are moving toward reopening and a host of different topics. And as Kristen has settled into the district, I wanted to have an opportunity for her to share with the board where we're heading in special education. I know that that's been a priority for our district. I've asked her to do a lot of work on reevaluating our continuum of services and providing our teachers with tools so that we're looking at a consistent, reliable program K through 12 where our practices are aligned. and clear for all of our teachers to reference. And she has done an outstanding job engaging teachers in the special education department, really in both buildings, to help develop this work. So she will be sharing with us shortly just an update on the work that's been done, where we currently stand, and where we are headed in special education, ending with some commentary on the program, the middle school multi-age self-contained program specifically that we've been talking about in the district as well. So we'll give her a minute to get that set up.
How many Carries and Kristens does it take to?
That's all right.
Usually it goes like log in as another user.
I can do this.
I am. Thank you.
Hey, Cal.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
Technology.
It's kind of.
I don't think so either.
So we're thinking that, switch over, because I can go send, see how that's going to go. That's what they need.
My daughter will tell me, you're not using passive technology.
That's it.
So you're gonna go, so you.
Well, that one, she could use this one too. Where?
Just my email address.
Yes. No, it's page here, not even looking, just page here.
Yeah, I just emailed them to see. That's exactly, hopefully they can get it going. It's starting at. There, David was calling for. Got, well, we ready to go. I mean, wow.
It's very sensitive. That was a lot more sensitive than a lot.
I don't think
Oh, yeah, I do. That's why I appreciate that.
Easy access.
This is.
Oh.
Cool, okay.
Aaron.
All right. Oh my God. Okay, finally. I think you're right. Okay. I'm really excited now I finally got this presentation going to have a fun conversation with you guys about special education and kind of what I've uncovered and the things that we've been working on. So here we go. Everything that we're doing is grounded in our strategic goals, our plans, everything that we're doing right now, we're working towards our vision and our mission, encompassing all of the things that what makes Delaware Academy great. So the things that we're working on now, there's still work to be done on our working through our vision and our mission and towards our goals. And then there's much work that can still be done in utilizing the vision and the mission, monitoring our goals, and creating really strong relationships with our stakeholders. So we're gonna jump right into it, right? This data we have, it has not changed really in the last 2 or 3 years. We have 135 students that receive special education services either through CSE or CPSE, and 50 students who receive 504 services. Our classification rate is 18%. It's been 18% over the last 3 years. So not a lot of change there. I broke it down for you just so that you had a sense of our students that are in district. We have 159 students that receive services, 112 students with an IEP, and 47 in our district that receive 504 services. That's how that's broken up into our preschool students, our elementary building, our middle school building, and our high school. And any questions that you have, stop me along the way.
Okay. Mentioned we had about 18% in special ed programs. What is recommended by the state?
Under 17% is recommended. So for the 18-19, the 19-20 school years, you were both at 18%. Definitely something that I've looked at. We're using some longitudinal data to figure out kind of where we are with that. But yeah, it is a little high. Our out-of-district placements, we've got 26 students, 23 of them have IEPs, and 3 have 504s. We have 16 students in our BOCES, either ONC or DCMO. We have neighboring districts, which we have our students attend Franklin Central School and South Portwright Central School, and we've got a couple privates, Springbrook and CHAP, the Children's Home Learning. What was really fun about the presentations that Kelly has done across the board is she put up some performance data. And we just digged into Q2, basically when I got here. In the elementary, we don't really keep that kind of data, we keep other kinds of data. So one of the things that Julie and I have talked about is creating dashboards that show how our special education students are doing in the elementary moving forward. And this is some of the data just that we were able to pull and compare with our general education students. So this, the lighter color should be familiar to you. You've seen it a couple times in Kelly's presentations. And this is how we're doing. And I want to draw attention to, is there a little light up here? I don't know. Draw attention to, our students are doing almost as well, right? And in some cases, better than our general education students. I want you to pay particular attention to 7th grade. To 7th grade. Those are our middle school students who are here every day, and look how well they did. Better than our general education students. So just a point of interest for us, right? Our middle school students do well when they're here in person. Any questions about this at all? It's just data that I pulled just to get a sense. Now again, this is only 1 quarter. We'll be pulling this data to add to our longitudinal data with final numbers that you'll be able to see when I do a full presentation.
As we move forward,
it's very important to track the performance disaggregated by students with special needs compared to the success rates of our general education students. That's reflective of education at tier 1 across the board for all students, but it also gives a hint at the effectiveness of the programming that is being provided through special education. So areas that would raise a red flag would be any area that you're seeing disproportionate representation of students with disabilities when they're compared to their general education peers. And so where you see the greatest gaps there from this comparison, when we're looking at, I'm looking specifically at the percentage of students who are currently passing. You see a large gap, I think, in 10th grade, as to use as an exemplar. So when we use data this way, it tells us that where we need to really target our instruction and take a closer look at how are we providing special education services at that grade level? Is this overall? Is it in certain content areas? Do we have students in the appropriate placements? And are we implementing IEPs with fidelity? When we look at data this way, it just allows us to target and really drill down to the impetus for where the breakdown could be occurring. So all of this just shows us quarter 2. This is a practice that we need to continue to move toward in a more robust way to really be able to target and inform the quality of our special education programming. So thank you for throwing that out there.
And drilling down, really taking a look at the goals that are on the IEPs and are we meeting them from the data that we've collected here. Really important, and I love data, and this is the data that we're gonna be doing with our teachers, sharing this with our teachers, sharing this with our administrators, because it is something that has to be commonplace. We really have to use data to inform our decisions.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt you, but when you mentioned 10th grade and the disparity there, have we calculated, or is there any way of bringing in that are those people who are IEPs, were they remote only? Were they, and how did that affect?
Yep, I don't think that that's reflected in that table, but we certainly have the information at our fingertips now to be able to look at it exactly.
I can absolutely do that, and I know what you're talking about. Are these, any one of these 8 students,
Right,
where do they fall within
Or
that?
learning models,
For sure.
are they?
For sure, we can definitely drill down.
And especially for the students who are not meeting success because they're not doing the work.
Right,
And they're not doing the work because they're remote or.
that's right. So it allows us to say, okay, instead of starting here, we can now start here and really determine the etiology of that performance or lack of performance.
So some of the things that we're proud of in the last couple of months is that we've done some really good professional development. We've offered the New York State graduation requirements to all of our teachers, our special education teachers, our PPS staff, our school counselors, our psychologists, our administrators. Thank you guys so much. And I meant to say that at the very beginning, that my counterparts, both Julie and Robin, have been with me through all of this, and I do appreciate your support so much in all the endeavors that we're doing. So we had a lot of participation with our New York State graduation requirements. They were, everyone was given the template, the PowerPoint. There's a lot of really good helpful links in there, so it's a reference guide for them. We also did an IEP writing calibration, where every single one of our special education teachers sat in this room and we talked about how to best write an IEP. We went section by section. Norm Erickson was vital in the conversation. It's his expertise. And we did a lot, we had just had some really great conversations about what's been done in the past, what things we might have to do differently in the future, and what we were doing right now. So it was a really great conversation, and I just appreciated so much that we had 100% participation in that. So, some of the things that I gave you tonight, and Sue, thank you so much. Our continuum of services document was a document that, when I first got here, all of the conversations that I had with our special education teachers, do we have a document that says the services that we have, and how we actually make decisions around what student gets what service. So, in collaboration with our teachers, We sat down, we had conversations, they helped me create this document that you have in your hand, this continuum of services document, which I'm gonna go through with you in a little bit, but it has not only the program descriptions, but it also has the learner characteristics. And that was the most important thing for us to talk about, right? Why are we saying that a student needs direct consultant teaching? Or why are we saying that a student needs to be in a 15-1 self-contained class? What are we using to guide our work? And so now we have a document that actually helps us do that at the high school, the middle school, and elementary level. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Our guide to eligibility, we should have one. We should understand our process around how a student becomes eligible for special education services, as well as how they become eligible for a 504. These are guides that are really important for us to have. So we are in the process of creating that. Our roles and responsibilities, not just for our special education teachers, but for our administrators, for our general education teachers, really important. And that's work that we're doing right now and that we'll continue to do. As well as my counterparts over there working on our RTI, our AIS, and our MTSS framework, right? What are the steps that we take before a student even comes to special education? And that's some of the work that we're just doing. That document is amazing, can't wait to show it to you. We've got a lot of work to do on it, but it's a document that I'm proud of, that we're working on right now. Any questions about any of these documents before? I'll go into them a little bit more.
Are there committees for this, you said you were working on the guide, or guides and roles. Am I assuming that all the special ed teachers are a selected number, yourself and?
So let's start at the bottom, the RTI and the AIS process, we started with Kelly as an administrative team. Then we branch out to our AIS teachers to ask for input, ask for the things that they're doing in their classroom. What are the interventions that are due? So we're talking with the teachers about that, creating a document, then we'll have another stakeholders group to review that document, review the process, and review the paperwork that's needed for that. So yes, it's not just Chris Shearer, it's not just Robin Robbins, it's definitely a team effort in creating these. The roles and responsibilities, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And some of it, Kelly, Lucy, some of it is, they don't start from scratch, there's parameters set by the state or the federal government, where the money's coming from, that says, you know, for kids that take state exams, whatever their score is, automatically gets them into AIS, things like that, so.
That I knew.
Yeah, so there's definitely guidance. And how we do it here at Delaware Academy, right? We make it our own.
Yeah.
As far as the roles and responsibilities, those are pretty clear cut, but we have to make them Delaware Academy, right? So those will definitely, it's probably the last thing on my list that I'll get done this school year, but it is something that we talk about all the time. What's my responsibility as the director? What's Julie's responsibility as the building principal? What's a general education teacher's responsibility for a student in their classroom? What's our special education case manager's responsibilities? So that's the work that we'll do, and it'll be collaborative. And very much, Lucy, I'm all about being collaborative. Our guide to eligibility, that's another one that is pretty cut and dry, but again, we want to make it Delaware Academy. So let's talk about that continuum of services document, because like I said, we're really proud of this document. We don't offer a lot of services, but what we do offer is effective, okay? We did find through this process, and one of my goals in creating this document was to see if we had any holes, if we were offering all of the services that we need to meet the needs of all of our students. We did add a couple new things for next year that I'll talk to you as we go down. So you're also gonna see that high school, middle school, and elementary all have the same programs. This is what we offer. We offer related services only, so some students might be receiving speech or OT or PT as part of their plan, most of our little ones. Consultant teaching, indirect as well as direct consultant teaching. So we're talking about that consultation between the teacher and the special education teacher that supports a student in the classroom, or a direct consultant teacher who's someone who's in the classroom, hand over hand, maybe they're taking notes, maybe they're refocusing, maybe they're reteaching in the moment. The kind of services that that student would need is a direct consult teaching. So resource room was really one that we might be over-servicing our students. We might be saying students need, now it's a restrictive, it's only 5-to-1. These are students who truly need pre-teaching, reteaching in a very small setting. Some of our students absolutely need that. Some of our students, we needed to come up with maybe something else that could support them a little differently. And that would be the instructional support program, which is a 15-to-1 program that we're gonna experiment with next year. We're gonna be able to have 15 students with a special education teacher, hopefully in the same cohort or right around the same cohort, right? Working on the same skills, where it's more of that organization piece. Maybe I'm helping you define, helping you with a project. Maybe I'm helping you with an essay that the whole class has to do. Maybe we're doing some of that kind of bigger things that you don't need intentional reteaching and pre-teaching, which then allows us to service more students and support them in all of the ways that they need. So it's something that we're gonna try, and we're gonna try it at every level next year, which is gonna be exciting in the elementary. I'm really excited to see how that's gonna work. And
That's only like one period or a couple periods, it's not like doing that all day.
no, absolutely not. It's a resource room is typically one period, 5 times a week. A student might get a resource room for 3 days out of the week and might get an instructional support the other 2 days. Or we certainly will have students who need 5 days of resource room, for sure. But it's another option for us to work on some of those other skills and have students be a little bit more independent in the least restrictive environment. Our 15-1 program is a self-contained program per courses. So we have a 15-1 ELA course, math course. In elementary, not science and social studies, our teachers push into the classroom for that. In the middle school as well, they're cohorted. It's a 7th grade 15-1 ELA. It's an 8th grade 15-1 ELA. And then most of our students who need that intensive kinds of support then have a direct consultant for science and social studies. In high school we have multi-age levels, so we might have a 9-10, 15-1 ELA. We've had science and social studies in the past in the high school, where students need a little bit more of that one teacher up to 15 students in the classroom for more support. And those students are on track for a local diploma or Regents diploma. And then our newest program is what I'm hoping to have next year, which I think, have we talked about budgeting for that program specifically yet? I'm hoping that we'll be able to.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, okay. Missed that part. It's a 16-1 program, so I really want you guys, if you could, turn to the bottom of our middle school section, and I put it in blue purposefully on the bottom. It's an academic skills class that would have up to 6 students, 1 teacher and an aide. And I'll let you just read that description. I'm really excited about this program because I think the district absolutely needs it. We have some students that are in our BOCES program that could really benefit from this program. So bringing students back into our building is one of my primary goals, is to make sure that if we absolutely can, that we educate our students in-house. We do have some students that meet this profile that are already in our building, which means that there's an existing program of which we want to build upon. One of the strengths to this program is that it does have a work-based component where there's a community, get to know your community, be in the, and as we grow in this program, I envision that we could possibly move it to a 12-1-1 as we move into the high school and be able to have more students in this program as we grow. But it'll be small when we start, and it'll be in our middle school for next year. I'm very excited about it. So, and I'm also excited to share with you as we grow and as we begin to really formulate what this looks with. That team is, our related services people are absolutely amazing, and that team is working really, really hard to make this a positive place for our students to learn. So I'm really excited about that being one of our new services. So our plans for continuous improvement, with the help of our administrative team, taking a look at our longitudinal data to understand our district's strengths and our outcomes. So not only for special education, but for all of our students. Continue to develop the tools that we talked about today to guide our work, provide intentional and meaningful professional development. Something that our teachers are asking for, our school counselors are asking for, and so I'm excited to continue to help our teams grow. And then to plan strategically for the future, and that's some of the things that we're doing, you know, Carrie all the time, Kelly all the time, our building administrators all the time, thinking about what's our next step. Because we will be a leader in our area, in our BOCES, with our special education and our student services programs. We absolutely will. Very exciting work that we're doing. In student services, actually I just wanted to step back. I also gave you 2 documents, and I believe that you guys have the color copies. We made a point of, before any of our annual reviews, that parents not only receive their IEP within that 5 days, but also to receive documents that help them to understand graduation requirements. Really important that we do that. These will be on our website, but it's just one more thing. We redid letters. We trying to be a little more friendly in our documentation and in our communications. But this was something that the state came out with that I very much appreciated, and we've passed that on to our parents. Alrighty. So student services, we've been doing a lot of work, our school counselors. So our comprehensive guidance planning, some of the things that we're looking forward to doing, and they went through every single PD, they have been online with me, we've been doing webinars, such a dedicated group of individuals. I really appreciate the work that they do for all of, for me and for my colleagues, but for our students as well. A needs assessment, we need to do one, we need to use the data that we already have, to influence and to direct us in this planning for the guidance, for our guidance comprehensive plan. A senior exit survey, one that we haven't done in a little while, that'll be a little bit more comprehensive. What was their experience like here at Delaware Academy? What kinds of things would they have wanted to do differently? What kinds of experiences did they really, that they were excited about having? Along with some of that data that we collect at the end of the year anyway, their post-high school plans, their diploma, credentials, if they were getting a CDOS, if they were, any of the exit summaries and certificates that they have, we want to know that kind of information. So we're developing a senior exit survey right now, and we'll share those results with you in the summer. And all of those 2 things are going to guide our scope and sequence. We're really excited to create a roadmap to success, which is going to send us through all of the things that as a parent you can expect your child to go through as far as social emotional learning, our college and career readiness, and our academic support. We're excited to put that together. The team has been very responsive to it, which is really cool. And then our communication plan, a monthly newsletter, how are we going to communicate with parents and students in a way that's concise and not overwhelming, but has really good information Along with that, is our goal of, our parent universities offering opportunities for parents to learn at night with us, around financial aid, around, a whole bunch of things. So we're excited about some of those things. For next year, we have decided as a team that we really do want to make sure that we have a dedicated school counselor in all 3 of our buildings and our levels. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit, I know that you guys went through that process of adding a school counselor. And I'm so thankful for that because, we really need it. So our elementary counselor, a middle school counselor, and then 2 high school counselors. And you can just see as of, today's or April 1st data, that's the way that our numbers would fall. And then our focus moving forward, specifically in student services, is the implementation of Second Step K-5, which is a social emotional learning curriculum. And Julie and I are gonna be doing some training with our elementary teachers before the school ends. Really excited to get started with that as, it provides a platform and a foundation for our students. Common language, empathy, just wholeheartedly everything social emotional learning that we want all of our students to leave elementary school with. A college and career center. It was one of the things that when I got here and I was interviewing, I'm like, this room would be great for a college and career center. So really develop a place for students to go to research, for people to come in and do presentations, for us to do small group counseling. I'm really excited to be able to find a space. Continue to work with the advisory council is doing, and the reasons why, how the advisory council supports our program and our department. And then completing the comprehensive plan for 21-22. Any questions?
You foresee the availability of many special ed candidates for this new position?
Oh, I can hope. I can hope. You don't know, people move around. Delaware Academy is an amazing place to work, and I've only been here for a couple months. Don't regret it for a second, this place is amazing, so I hope that I can convey that to other candidates that are coming in, but I'm hoping that we'll get a good pool.
The pool in general, and I think this is what you're alluding to, Lucy, specifically special education is not robust.
Right.
And when you compound that with the fact that we're looking for a very specific skill set to target for this program, we're hoping to find a needle in a haystack. However, with other positions that have been open so far throughout the district, we've had pretty good candidate pools because of who we are. And so I think once word spreads that we're being creative here and looking to do really great things in special education, hopefully that will attract some solid candidates.
We've also reached out maybe to some people that we haven't reached out to before, programs that, college programs,
Like St. Rose.
yeah,
Syracuse.
absolutely, the Buffalo area. So there's some hope. It is that good, you have no question. We have a lot of work to do, but we have really, really dedicated staff that's willing to do the work and is excited to do the work, so.
We've really charged Kristen and the department with some pretty lofty goals of where we need to head, and where we need to shore up, and where we need to deepen our practices. And I just wanted to pause before the year got away from us to share with all of you what the vision is with the department and where we're headed. So thank you for your attention tonight on that. Thank you, Kristen, for putting it together for us.
Thank you.
Here you go. Does anyone have any public comment?
Okay. All right, new business. So would you do the roll call first, or do you want me to do it? That's the roll call, do you want me to do it, or do you want me to do it? Okay. A motion to adopt the 2021-2022 budget. So thank you, Kim, and a second? Second. Thank you, Tammy. Any questions or comments? Thank you, Carrie and thanks everyone in the whole administration for working so hard on that.
Carrie had the lion's share of it.
All right, so it's a roll call, so.
Okay, Beth,
Yes.
Tammy? Yes. Seth,
yes.
Lucy,
Yes.
Sean's absent, Kimberly,
Yes.
and James?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Proposition to authorize a student to serve as ex officio non-voting member of the school board. A motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy, and a second.
Second,
Thank you, Seth. Any questions or comments?
so we talked about being a part of that process, how, when that gets developed, I don't know if we're doing it.
Absolutely, yes, there will be a process and we'll absolutely include any and all board members that want to be part of that.
Great.
All right, thank you very much, trustee Gate. All right, roll call.
Okay, Beth,
Yes.
Tammy? Yes. Seth,
Yes,
Lucy,
Yes.
Kimberly,
Yes.
and James?
Yes.
Thank you.
Proposition to approve repair reserve fund. A motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Kim, and second.
Second.
Thank you, Lucy. Any questions or comments? All right, roll call.
Okay, Beth,
Yes.
Tammy?
Yes.
Seth,
yes,
Lucy,
Yes.
Kimberly,
Yes.
and James?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. A proposition to purchase a van. A motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy, and a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, James. Any questions or comments? All right. Ready? Yes.
Beth,
Yes.
Tammy?
Yes.
Seth,
Yes,
Kelly, Lucy,
Yes. Okay. No problem.
Kimberly,
Yes.
and James?
Yes.
All right, so all of our motions were carried. Thank you, everyone. Upcoming board meeting dates. Our regular meeting will be on Tuesday, April 27th. The meeting is held on that date because the component districts have to vote on the DCMO BOCES administrative budget, and we all have to do it on the same day. And we will have an annual budget hearing Monday, May 10th, in the high school auditorium at 7 o'clock. A Meet the Candidates forum will be held at 6:30. And the annual budget vote and Board of Education elections will be Tuesday, May 18th, in the middle school building on the first floor between the gym and the ag classrooms from noon to 8 p.m. And when we go back, the Tuesday meeting will begin at 5 with an executive session, and then we'll come out to public session like we are now at 6. So again, that's on Tuesday, April 27th. Anything else we need to cover?
I do not believe so.
Okay, a motion to adjourn.
Can I ask a quick question?
Oh, sure.
So what is our role? Do we have any role in the May 10th budget hearing or the Meet the Candidates? Do we just sit and listen? Or do I have a role? I don't know.
The meet the candidates, we usually come just
Okay, I didn't know.
But we'll be in the audience.
Okay.
After.
You'll have a chance, Kim, also to, if you have a question that you'd like them to answer,
Okay.
Emily, Mr. Gray's class, the debate,
Okay, thank you.
It's what we did last.
so,
Thank you.
Yeah, it's what you did last, yeah. And for the budget hearing itself, we are usually set up in the auditorium. We'll give a comment supporting why we would like our budget passed. But you don't have to speak if you don't want to.
well, the pressure's on. Because I remember the first year, nobody told me they would ask my opinion, they're like, what? So be prepared, say something.
Right. But other than, so any other questions about, and then for the budget vote, you just come and vote. So, and then bring others that are qualified to vote. Definitely let people know that that's an election.
Sue, how many completed, petitions do we have for board members?
I'm sorry?
How many completed petitions do we have for board members? 2.
Just 2 right now?
Yes.
I'm sorry,
There was,
2 openings or 1?
There's 2 openings.
And we only have 2 people,
Right, at this time, they have until April 19th.
okay.
We had three that had picked them up.
Yes,
Right, and those were the 3 that I had shared with you guys.
so
And
Monday
2 of
at
them
what
went to
time?
my turn.
5 o'clock.
So on Monday, the 19th at 5 o'clock, they must be interviewed.
Yes.
Okay, so that's important.
So I can email you or whatever, let you know what the final outcome
Good.
is. Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
All right,
And
any other?
only one
Yeah, sure.
question for Mrs. Zimmerman. As the new schedule is being proposed for the high school, especially middle school, if it includes if there's a change in programming, we will be allowed to know that and discuss it ahead of time?
Absolutely, yes. The most significant changes in programming, we've already discussed, specifically within that special education program, and we've talked about the driver's ed piece. Other than that, anything else that comes about, in fact, I can have Mrs. Robbins give us a presentation on that if you would like.
Well,
As we get
what I was
closer to the
concerned about,
master
is
schedule,
I've heard about, from a very close source,
Yes.
is a change maybe in algebra, extended.
Okay, so I can speak to that a little bit. We haven't landed on that definitively, but currently, we host a program where students can have that shot at algebra for 3 consecutive years. But that is not consistent with state guidance, that practice is not. If a student is not being successful for that long in Algebra 1, it's common practice to divide that up over 2 years with different tiered levels of support. So sometimes it's called an Algebra 1A and an Algebra 1B. But rarely, well, I've not heard of 3 years of taking a shot at that, nor is that recommended by the state. If we have a student who is struggling to that degree, we should be providing targeted supports not only throughout the school year, but how are we using our summer as well? And on top of that, giving them multiple shots at taking that Regents exam and supporting them to do that. Within that model, that aligns with several of the graduation pathways, which would still allow a student that even if they weren't successful after those 2 years, they could still potentially be eligible for a superintendent's determination as another pathway based on their performance in their seat time. The other flexibility that's provided to students with IEPs, as we know, have that safety net. So they can score a minimum score of a 55 as passing. And then there are also compensatory options. So given the increased flexibility in graduation pathways and the way that we are looking at programs from both a remedial perspective and from a targeted intervention perspective, I'm confident that shifting that model to 2 years of that algebra will meet the needs of all of our learners.
However, we, at least for algebra, we have the highest BOCES record of success, as it is with the old program.
And I would caution you in interpreting that success due to 3 years of algebra.
I'm not sure it's 3, I think it's 2, but maybe.
We currently run a program where kids have 3 years of Algebra 1. Robin, what do we call
Well,
those?
it's called pre-algebra and then extended algebra, which takes 2
Okay.
full years.
Right,
So
right.
we're basically,
And then they can take
we're
algebra.
basically talking about not having pre-algebra any longer.
Now,
But still having a 2-year track.
Yes.
I know Mrs. Hennigan, who's highly regarded by the math department, said that for the struggling math students, she suggested that perhaps they take pre-algebra in 8th grade and get credit for it. And then the second year, then they can take algebra. So basically, they'll have the 2. And then for the 3rd credit, they could then take either business, math, or another class.
That's right, yeah. And that's currently, we have a track where kids are taking 3 years instead of the 2. So what you're describing is exactly what we're proposing.
Yes.
Well, that would be great.
A 2-year track so that they can achieve that minimal math credit for that Regents diploma. And then for those who don't want to go on to geometry or you know.
Because these are the struggling students.
Correct, that's right, that's right.
And one of the things we're looking at too, is that some of the things possibly we've been doing in the past, we didn't have quite the expertise on. We have Kristen, as far as getting credits, you know, for certain things, we've gotta be careful what we're giving credit for. So that was the other thing that, you know, we're really looking at, what does state ed say we can get credit for?
That's right.
The only other thing that was brought to my attention and was the fact that sometimes it's amazing that the adolescent brain isn't developed enough. And many of us have experienced math phobia and just not hitting the wall. But by 10th grade, it just like the bulb comes off. And so they were concerned, I think the math department, that by introducing it maybe and limiting it to 9th grade, that brain was not developed enough.
Yeah, there has not been conversation where it's limited just to 9th grade. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because if that is the perceived understanding, then we'll need to circle back and correct that. Kristen and Robin, have there been conversations with the math department
Yes.
as we've been developing this
But
model?
it's still been very preliminary because
Okay.
we're still in the process of putting that schedule together, so. And, you know, we haven't come back together as a whole group yet, so.
Okay.
So looking in terms of outcome data with our current 8th grade,
Yeah.
right, and the supports that they might need coming into 9th grade and how that plays a role, Lucy, so I understand what you're saying, you know, our middle school students, as well as having students not particularly be affected later on in going to a career tech program or taking some higher level courses or other courses outside of math, you know, and having them take 3 years of algebra, which, as Kelly said, is frowned upon by New York State, eliminating some of those other options that students might have going into their junior year.
We have a math teacher in the room with us.
Yes.
Does the board mind if I yield the floor to Janine for a minute?
No, you know, just to address the algebra class, I did take a look through that curriculum, and Mr. Chase and I just talked briefly, nothing official, so I don't want to be about perhaps offering that class at least to the 12-1 classes in 7th and 8th grade. A lot of that material is a lot of 7th grade and some 8th grade stuff. So at least it wouldn't be like that would be eliminated from their background, and perhaps then, like Mrs. Robbins was saying, perhaps they'd be able to get a credit of, you know, for high school at the end of 8th grade if that's an option. So I just figured I'd throw that out there, just, you know, something else we were talking about, kicking around, nothing official, but.
We've also talked about adding a math lab in conjunction with the course, so it would be a double period, which could help support those students having the course for a longer time during the day. So there's all kinds of things on the table, but we definitely are hearing what you're saying.
And what I think what the math department would say, I think, would be with the support, it would be almost have very, very, very close contact with the teacher who is teaching the class, or have the teacher be in that support, because these are the students who are, again, and I know you have much more background than I do, but I do know that there are students that if I left the students at their desk, they wouldn't do anything. If I stood by them, without even talking, they did all their work done.
Sure.
And that type of, and especially with the special needs children, sometimes that's even intensified. And that makes it hard with our staffing, but I think it can be done to have at least the support or AIS being the teacher.
That's what we're looking at.
Definitely.
That sounds good.
Definitely on the table, for sure.
Do we, so for next year, can you tell me our honors, class that we had honors, is that, I know we're looking at scheduling. Where are we with that?
I'm gonna yield to Kristen and Robin again, who've been working on the schedule.
Well, in general, we're looking at the concept of honors being more integrated within the actual class and not separated, separate classes. And the main reason for that is because it's gonna be in the 9th and 10th grade, and our 9th and 10th grade ELA and global classes are already so, we have to have, that's where all of our sections are. In order to really set it up so we have those separated honors, non-honors sections, it becomes very, we're gonna have a lot fewer kids in the honor section versus the non-honor section. And it makes the master schedule very difficult. And we also, again, don't show that the research really advocates that that works well for the general population. So, but we're looking at, can we challenge the students that need that challenge in a way that would still lead to that whole idea of an honors type of, program, but it would give all students the chance to really excel to that if that's what they want to do or, can do. And I know that's kind of a long-winded answer, but
So
we don't
that
want to take
means.
away the whole premise, but we don't think that it works well to have it separated, separate classes where, and our teachers, we've all talked about that, and I know that it's a mixed review, because it's easier to work with all students that just, can achieve at that level, but it doesn't really work well, in general for, we want to educate all students the same, into that same way.
So has this board ever discussed or set a minimum course enrollment number?
We have looked in the past at numbers.
Or even discussed what your comfort level is, a range, like of a minimum enrollment in order to run a course?
No, I don't, we've never had a range, we've been aware, I think when, and this comes back to things, discussions around AP. When it's been tight sometimes and you elected to offer an alternating years certain AP courses. Because if it was every year, there might only be 2 or 3 or something like that. But I do know that we have wanted to carry a distinction of being a school that offers some type of higher achievement track if that people want to do that. And I can tell you, going through the college process, which obviously you have been time to tell you, that's a question. Honors, AP, what do you got?
Right.
And does your school offer it, you take it, and that is it's a topic. So as we look at the changes, I think we should be very comfortable with where we're headed, relative to all of these questions, because, we know that there are fewer people in AP classes than we would like. But, maybe there's other reasons for that we need to address. And we know there's challenges around scheduling, we've accommodated those, I don't know what else that needs to move in the master schedule. But it's not taken lightly that we have that. It's, we wanted to distinguish ourselves in ways that allow our students to distinguish themselves, so.
So we've talked at length about the need for our students and our parents to be intimately involved in the 4- and 5-year plans for our students. So when a child comes in from middle school, they're sitting down with their counselor and they can walk away saying, all right, this is what I want to do after I graduate from high school. These are the courses I'm going to need to do it. And just generally speaking. And that's not to say that that can't change. That's a practice that has to occur every single year with every student. And so what that does for us, it gives us that trajectory, but also gives us a glimpse into what are we going to need in 3 years from now for AP course offerings? Because we know that the student is on this track for that planning. And if we have a student who we know is going to be seeking that coursework in 10th, 11th, 12th grade, then as we backtrack track into 8th and 9th grade, what types of learning opportunities are we giving them to make sure that they are prepared to enter that rigor of work? And if we label that an honors class in 9th grade or not, becomes less relevant to me than how are we ensuring that students have those robust learning experiences and access to content that challenges them at the appropriate level to prepare them for that type of work. I'm with you 110% on the AP, college credit coursework, all of those pieces. And I would encourage the board to consider supporting lower enrollment to maintain those for students. Even to the degree that if we have 1 or 2 students, maybe we explore a distance learning opportunity or collaborate with other districts to ensure that we still have those opportunities. But I think there's a lot of work to be done coming out of middle school and those early high school years to ensure that we're providing and preparing our students for that type of coursework by knowing that that's what our students want to be ready for. And if we are making decisions from that mindset, to me, the label becomes, what we call that in 9th grade becomes less relevant. But at the same time, I do understand the perception that is associated with that, and what this community has come to expect. So that is that whole mindset that I just described to you is certainly what I have charged our high school principal and our director of student services to make sure that we're implementing for our students. And that's the lens through which we should be making decisions on what courses we're running or not running.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when you're talking with people that are, recruiters, whoever, they're not asking about your school's philosophy.
Yeah,
Really,
no,
what
I
you
know.
just said, they're asking, tell me the names of the courses you're enrolled in.
Yep.
And how well you did in them, and and that's very clear and, sort of succinct, so I wanna make sure we're offering the best we can to every level, and, I think this clear presentation was very good, and we have, a large spectrum to be conscious of.
We do, and because we have a large spectrum, but we also have relatively small numbers. So we have to be cautious when we start to track kids as well. Because our numbers are so small, from a student's perspective, kind of along the lines of what Robin was saying, it becomes very evident that I'm with these kids and I'm not with those kids. So it's a balance, truly of all those factors. And if we do commit to running a separate honors type class, whether that be in one content area or not, that curriculum should look qualitatively and quantitatively different than the sister curriculum that's on the regular Regents track. It should not be a repeat of curriculum with more work. And based on my previous research, that was happening, and not just here, that's common across the board. But that tells me that if the district commits to that as well, that there needs to be some professional development and some true time spent curriculum writing to ensure that we're doing it right.
Absolutely.
So, but thank you. As we get closer, I can absolutely have Mrs. Robbins give us a presentation on what we're, where we're headed and where we're landing with specifics that you're looking for in each grade level and course area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, thank you everyone for joining us at our board meeting. And Mr. Schultz, can you end the live stream, please? And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.